was that there had to be a dishwasher in this house. Otherwise, I wasn't going to. I wasn't even going to entertain a relationship.
Yeah.
I
How
like
did
to
the conversation go about cooking? You guys split cooking jobs?
right now, my husband does most of the cooking.
How
Um,
about that?
he's a musician, and right now, there are no clubs, and
Yeah.
so I spend a lot of my time here doing, working my legal shield business, as you know, and as well as being an interpreter. And so he does the lion's share of the cooking. He brings me if we were ever like on a just a downtime, like not necessarily here, he sneaks up. He'll come over and suddenly I'll have a plate of food will appear. So it's a nice
That's
little
nice.
thing.
Way to go.
I
When
got
I was when I was in the Boy Scouts, my mom said, "Oh, looky here, there's a merit badge for cooking. Let's get that one." And that was the first merit badge I ever got.
I mean, cooking is fantastic, and to be transparent, for me, I'm not a big fan of the gender assigned, X person does this and so does that. That's not our household. That's not how we
Right.
operate. So the
It's good
cooking
when you
should go
recognize your strengths and everybody plays to their strengths.
exactly. The cooking should go to the people who love cooking, and then those who do not know how to cook should learn how to cook so that everybody's cooking. So,
That's right. If you don't cook, you should learn how to clean up.
yep. So it's good. It is 9:12. It is 9:12. And I encourage everybody. I know we're seeing some folks online that if you've been seeing us on the Facebook page and maybe you can't be a regular here on our session, you're always welcome to come when you can. You can pop in. We welcome you. The Zoom link is baystatezoom.com, or it can be the Z office or zoffice.live. Either of those gets you right into our room, and you're always welcome, even if it's just once in a while. And also, let's see, and also your teams. If you have teams that are you're building and you've got new folks coming in and they're just looking for something a little extra boost through the week, know that everybody is absolutely welcome. All those new associates out there, we want to keep expanding because, as we were mentioning before, just super excited to get New England growing and showing up with some numbers, getting on the books. Miss Fantasy, you in your car?
Ms. Welch, yes, I'm in my car. I pulled over.
Oh,
That's a wise choice.
Yeah, I'll mute out and I'll keep driving, but I'll listen. But yay. Hi,
yay!
Lisa.
How's it going? Drive safe.
I love it. Steve was asking a minute ago, how do people handle those folks who get the link and they get all the way, they've seen everything, and then they're like, oh, I don't have my credit card. Yeah, I'll get that later. What do you guys? What kind of advice do you have for Steve today?
Do you want me to say or
Yeah,
somebody else? They don't want to sign up right then. They need more information. They're just making an excuse. And I think a three-way call right then, if possible, is good. Like if you can really make them feel like you're doing them a favor of introducing them to someone. But if you're more thinking they just want to get off the phone, then you can literally say, oh, okay, what is it that you're looking for what is it that would put you so that you would go run and grab your credit card right now? Like you can make a joke because they really are looking for more information. I can't always think on the fly like that, but something like what would make you go run and grab it right now?
Excellent. That's a great way to transition into the start of our meeting. It is Thursday, March 15th, and I welcome you all to another weekly episode of As the Legal Shield Turns. My name is Joe Welch, and I will be one of the hostesses with the mostesses here on our call. And I work with my partner in crime, Jim Tanner, and he is in the background getting ready, probably putting on his face. I put on mine tonight for you all and showed off my beautiful blue curls. Tonight, we wanted to start, of course, with a couple testimonies as we usually do. I've been really enjoying having us be active in that way. So our night is going to look something like this. We're going to get a couple people to do some testimonies. Let's do two more membership ones. Maybe somebody who hasn't done one before. Can I see a hand? And then I'm going to describe the rest of the agenda. or I can choose you. Lisa
You
and
can
Michael.
do 'em.
And so thank you, Amy, but we're going to go with Lisa and Michael tonight. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over the presentation. Remember, we started a new strategy that on the last week of the month, we're going to have an open house. That is the time where you can bring your guests. The other side of it is that we're splitting the presentation into two parts. Either myself, Nola, by the way, you're being voluntold, Jim Tanner, one of us will be doing the compensation opportunity pass part, but who wants to do that first part that talks about our membership? Tonight, we're actually going to focus on that part in terms of just unpacking those slides, really allowing everybody to feel comfortable. And also, after the testimonies, I would like everybody to put in kind of your like maybe top 2 or 3 questions about the slides or things that you have in mind that aren't crystal clear. And then Jim is going to come and join me, and we're going to just start an open conversation just to really demystify those slides so that everybody feels very empowered. And then we're going to want to see, who's going to be joining us next week to do that first opening part. Fair enough?
Mhm.
Good for you. If you could just go and get your credit card, it's only $99. No. So, okay, Ms. Lisa Day, you go first with the first membership testimony.
Hello, my name is Lisa Day from Maine. I actually, what's today? Today's Thursday. On Tuesday, I had to call my law firm and just mainly to get advice and ask a question because I had an incident where I let my grandson play a game on my tablet and he downloaded this particular game, and all of a sudden I had all of these charges coming off my account. So, very quickly, tried to block stuff and whatnot. And I even was on a chat with Google, and, like what they say, oh, well, you have to talk to the developer of the app or whatever. Well, as you know, that's not going to go anywhere. So I decided it's just mainly because I was really frustrated and whatnot. So I called the law firm and spoke with one of the attorneys. She was very nice, and it's kind of, she was nice and very, I don't like things sugar coated. It's like, just say it, she was trying to be nice. I'm like, just go out and say it. I'm like, just tell me I'm not going to get my money back and I have no chance, right? So we kind of joked and, talked for a little bit about it, because I just mainly wanted, what are my chances, right? Do I have a chance? And, what are my options? So basically she said, well, you really don't have any, or, not that you don't have any, but good luck with that. And what I've already done was pretty much what she would have told me to do anyway. So even though it didn't work in my favor, it was still, I knew that I did all I could. And, other than uninstalling the game and putting a block on my tablet, it was just like, it is what it is. And, that lesson learned. So what are you going to do, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lisa. And was it Michael? You were going to go ahead and give us the second testimony.
Sure, why not? I've got a very recent, yesterday I talked to a very new ID Shield customer of mine, and he's a retired police officer, and he was getting these calls from IRS saying that his IRS number, his social security number is going to be suspended if he didn't call this number. It was the robotic call that I'm sure we've all gotten, but he was getting so many of them. He was getting 2 or 3 a day. And it got to the point where he was just concerned because he was getting so many of them. So he jumped on the phone with Legal Shield, ID Shield, and mentioned that to the investigator, and they reassured him that they looked at his account and there were no hits on his account. Everything looked good as it should, and they just kind of reassured him that there were no incidents on his account. And he kind of gave me a call right after that he got off the phone with the ID Shield, and he just said that the peace of mind that he has now is just so reassuring, and he's completely reassured, and he's so happy that he signed up for the service.
Awesome. All right, story collectors, here's 2 more. That's excellent. And yeah, the scams on the IRS is just, it's getting worse. And there's actually some really great articles out there. I don't know if you guys are aware of this feature. It's still relatively new to me, but in Google, you're able to search for certain keywords. So this is also really good in terms of the ID Shield, especially because every time there's a breach, your Google will let you know that there's an article out. So just FYI, I can't describe it further than that right now, but there is a feature within Google, and I don't even know how I signed up. Someone walked me through it. It wasn't that all that hard, and I just put identity theft, and I'm starting to get those articles. All right, fantastic. So we're moving into the next aspect of our night tonight. Today's activity is going to be all around the presentation because, as we promised, we are going to be doing that next week. So went ahead and pulled up, and what I'm going to do is, without talking through it, I'm just going to go slide by slide, just so that we see where we're going, right? Because that's probably step one of everything, right? Is where are we going? And as I'm doing that, just start in the chat if there's anything that you're just like, I'm unclear, I don't know how to phrase this. What does that even mean? Just put those in the chat, because I think that's going to help direct us in terms of making sure that we answer especially your questions. And it could be also about tone. It could be about stories. It could be any aspect of this presentation that you're going to do. If there's a question about technology, those are welcome as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Jim, am I on course?
Yes.
Awesome. And when I tell you that he and I were just so excited to do this, we just come up with new fun ways. All right.
Well, while you're doing that, I just want to share the vision of what we talked about. The vision is that.
So Jim, I'm
When
going
I-
to ask you to hold, because
Okay. Yes.
for our deaf folks, if they're reading the captions, it starts to become a little too many visual aspects. Is that
Okay.
good?
Yes.
Right, so I'm going to just go through the legal part first, and then I'll take a break. Is that cool? All right, thank you. Hang on one second. Are we sharing? Yes. All right. Jim, give us the vision.
Come back on. So the vision is, and I'll go back to when I got started. When I got started, while it was true, I got a VHS tape and they said, Greg Abrams said to me, don't try to do this presentation. You're going to mess it up. Play the video. We called it a power play because it was a VHS tape. The reason they called it a power play was because they said, just push power and push play and let the video do everything else for you. And then this other anecdote we used to have back then, this joke that would be in Legal Shield, they'd say, well, what's the best tape to use as an exposure? And they would say, duct tape, put it across your mouth. Don't say anything, just play the video, right? Although that is aged out because now everything's digital. So that's not even funny anymore. So, but the point is that is powerful, that we have a business where you can point somebody to a presentation done by an incredible professional, and that incredible professional does the presentation. So even if today is your first day in Legal Shield, you can start protecting people with the membership and building your team on your first day in the business. That is that magic thing called duplication. But where we separate from the reality is, and I think we're all the leaders, all the people who came before you are guilty of this, is we often say, well, if there's people doing that, I don't need to learn how to do that. The reason there's people doing that is to allow you to get started quickly, but there's an expectation, if we're building a legacy, that you'll acquire that skill and be one of those people that every new person plugs people into. And so this is ultimately skill development. This is ultimately paying it forward. Imagine a world where here in the 4 New England states, and wherever you are, I mean, we have people join us from everywhere. Imagine a world where we're all capable of doing a compelling and thorough professional presentation, which means that there's more presentations being done, which means that more people are having the door opened so they can appropriately learn about our services and our opportunity. That's the vision. So to get to that vision, we have to keep acquiring the skills in all of us. We have to continue to hone and perfect our skills. Joe?
You know, and as well, you know, a lot of you have been around, you have experience, you're doing these presentations one-on-one, very likely. I don't know who has wanted to do it in front of a larger group. So it could be the difference between, not that you don't necessarily know or understand the content, but that transition from maybe small to larger groups. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So if you guys are experts, we'll just close up now. Thank you so much. No, I'm totally kidding. What we're going to do is we'll just go ahead and we're going to just address it. Jim is going to stay on and we're going to go slide by slide. You know, I think if people have some, you know, maybe you've heard something that's amazing that you just love on a particular slide, this is a share. Our goal is not to stay on any one slide for too long, because we'd like to get through the whole presentation and then also choose who the presenter is going to be for next week. So if there isn't much to say, we're probably just going to have either probably Jim, but myself too. And if Nola is in a safe place, we definitely want input. And we're just going to keep going through and just clearing up any kind of questions. So Jim, hang on one second. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pull up the legal, just once again, the legal presentation. And so does everybody have access to that? Yeah, excellent. So slide number 1, your opportunity, your journey. Jim, what happens here?
So you're setting the tone. So this is a transition. Often on the first slide, as a speaker, you'll talk about your story. And so this is where you step out of what you've done or you know, your Legal Shield opportunity. This is the transition slide. And this is when you go to this, you talk about, but this is for you. We're here tonight to talk about your opportunity and your Legal Shield journey. So you're setting the tone, but this is the transition slide to the actual membership.
So this is
yeah, and I'll just say, this is where you guys heard me say, you've probably been on webinars before. Like, I'm setting the tone. So we are constantly learning how to do this well by weaving in our most common objections into the presentation. One of the things I know is I'm in this 3-minute zone where some people are just going to drop off. I have to justify the time they're going to spend with me. And so I want to tell them how this is not like other things they've seen before, in case they've seen other things before. But that's a technique, you know, you develop that by doing this.
Jim, if I may, I still don't have PowerPoint on my computer. Do you think it's important that we have all the features of the fly-ins and the way things pop up? Is this
not for training, no.
All right, wonderful. All right, slide 3.
This is still me?
I think it's you. People certainly can raise their hands if they want to add anything to it.
I don't want to dominate. I love everybody's input. I think this is a better meeting when everybody jumps in, but I'll start and then everybody's free to interrupt. Interrupt is a positive thing in this meeting environment. So now we are comparing and contrasting this to other things that people are already more familiar with. When I got started, we used life insurance, car insurance, health insurance, right? Well, that still works, but now that we have this mobile app, we want to put Legal Shield in their mind right next to the mobile apps that are already on their phone. So we're taking this intangible concept and we're making it real life, like, oh, I use those things every day, which is why it moved to Spotify and Amazon, because early on we used Netflix and Uber, and those are good too. But, you know, pandemic, people are probably not using Uber as much as they were, Airbnb as much as they were. People are using Amazon and Spotify more than ever right now. So we're just using those examples.
So Jim, are we trying to make it familiar in that slide as well?
Yes, what we're doing is we're mentally putting Legal Shield, a company they've never heard of, right next to things they've heard of every single day.
Right, so they equate them.
That's right.
Okay.
You know, to tag on to Jim's comment, the other thing on here is about the simplicity. So they're also seeing that they know how to use apps. Even the person who says they have the least technology has at least one app on their phone, unless they pull out a clam, in which case They likely have a laptop at home. And so, to go what you were saying, Jim, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide, but I'm actually going to see if anybody wants to take it. What is the purpose of this slide? What are we bringing? Does anybody want to contribute? Michael.
I think just what the slide says, equal access for everybody. I mean, we see on the news, on social media, everybody recording injustice with their cell phones. So why not use your cell phone for justice? And, like Melissa Wilder says, tap the app. And if you're overhearing a conversation in a store, a grocery store, and somebody's having an issue, ask them, why don't you just tap your legal app?
Beautiful. And this is where you're setting up. So, one of the preconceived ideas in people's minds is that they don't get in trouble, so they don't need attorneys. So this is where I start that journey. Here's what, and I don't ever say, now you're probably thinking, I don't need attorneys, because that's not helpful. I say, when somebody first showed this to me, the first thing I heard in my mind was, well, I don't get in any trouble, so why would I need a lawyer? But what I realized was he wasn't talking about getting in trouble. He was talking about having a voice, having advocacy, having access to justice, something like that, where you're attacking these people's held beliefs. And if you feel compelled here to throw in stuff about, usually I do it later, stuff about, knowing attorneys, I do it later, but you can do that here too.
Excellent. All right.
And the great thing about Zoom, let me say this, when I was taught to do this in the room, and NOLA and all these folks that have been around a long time, you had to memorize everything we're talking about. My presentations are better now virtually than they've ever been live, because I don't have to remember anything, because I have the speaker notes in the presentation version in front of me. And I put everything in there that I want to say for that slide. So I don't have to worry about winging it. The place I'm least comfortable doing this presentation is in front of a room full of people. It's not the people, it's that I don't have the presentation view of the slides like I do doing a Zoom. So Zoom is the easiest way to learn how to do this. Go ahead.
Excellent. And also, I think you raise a great point that, especially for our new folks, that, we're feeling maybe that there needs to be like a high level of presentation. And, the reality is that the information is on the slide. So if there's nothing else to say, that's the building block. Like everything we do here is you start with what's given. That's the system. And you can say it is, that's a fantastic, catchphrase: simpler, easier, more affordable, right? It comes up many times. And that is, again, going back to those objections that we're trying to help them overcome, because maybe they were like, oh, well, okay, I can kind of see that. Oh, it's probably too expensive. Next slide. Oh, it's actually more affordable, so it's constantly battling the objections in the room.
Yeah, you're stating the objection that they're thinking, and then you're just dealing with it before. At the end of this, if you do it right, they have to give you their money, because you're just dealing with all the stuff that they would give you as the reasons. The other thing is, the simpler you keep this presentation, the more duplicatable it is. I remember vividly, Joe, my Fast Start class when I was brand new. The guy, I don't remember his name. He did a great job, but I remember thinking, I can do what he just did. And there was like 50 people in that room. And I was like, I can do what he just did. He's pointing at the screen. He's just saying what's on the screen. And that was freeing to me, because I delivered furniture that day, worked half a day, and then drove to a Fast Start class. I didn't think that I was some great salesperson, but I knew I could do what he was doing, because he was just reading what was in front of him.
And we're also starting the overall, the visualization. They can see the app here. This is how it's going to appear to them. So we're already establishing that as well. All right, slide number 6. Our vision. Does anybody want to take our vision? For me, this is a slide I tend to read out loud. It's almost like the company is my third party. So I might say something like, I'm not always, I don't read off of every slide, but this one I have to read word for word, because it really speaks to who I am and why I'm standing here, why I'm talking to you, because this is important to me. Does anybody else want to add to that? Jim?
Yeah, I'll say that this is where I reaffirm what I said prior, which is that this is Legal Shield is not about a service for people that break the law. I say so. So I'll read. I'll say to build. So here's our vision: to build a better world where access to justice and security is equal for every human, regardless of gender, race, orientation, education, social status, or personal wealth. Let me ask you a question. Does that say anything about breaking the law? Getting access to lawyers because of the things that you shouldn't have done? No, it's about a voice. It's about equal access. And that's what was so compelling about me about this when I first saw it for myself. Let me show you what's next. Or, you know, in this case, let me tell you a little bit about this company that makes this possible. Something like that, because that's your transition to company credibility,
And
right? Because they've never heard of Legal Shield before.
And I think it's a great thing that you just said, transition to the company. It's also, you know, there's obviously a format in how we do the slides, right? So we're starting to establish the need, right? Why, what might they need? They're asking those questions. Well, what would I need this for? Where does this fit in my life? We're now leading into the company, and now you're going to be answering the questions for them about who are we? Why would I give you my hard-earned money? You know, especially if I've never heard of you before.
So every slide before the corporate office slide is introduction, setting the tone for the webinar. Once we hit this slide, it's about the company credibility. Then it pivots to the service itself. Like, what is this thing that those 4.4 million people voluntarily renew every single month because they would never be without it? And then from there, it works itself over to the compensation. So, you know, it's the company, the product, the compensation plan, how you get started. That has never changed. The slides change all the time, but that series of information in that order has always been the same.
So we're
Jim,
oh, go ahead.
Yes.
are you putting kind of a header in each of those sections? Or are you just flowing through that this is the next thing we're doing?
I'm not really putting in a header. You know, in the old days, the presentation was 5 titles of coverage. And today I don't even remember what those are. I bet Nola does. But I'm just kind of moving. So on my presenter slides, when you do a presenter view, you can see what the next slide is. When you're in the room, you kind of push the button. If they've changed the slides recently, you're at the mercy of seeing what comes next. But when you're doing this on Zoom, it's just coming up. It's just flowing. You can see what's next. You can see your own notes that you typed in. So you should feel really comfortable with all of it. And by the way, I teach my whole team, you got to practice this presentation, practice it in front of friends, practice it for your family members. I did this presentation. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a laptop. We used to have a flip book. I did this in front of the mirror, whispering because other people were asleep in the house so many times, you guys. And I just think that, you know, prior preparation prevents poor performance, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, we feel confident when we feel prepared. Do it for other people. Do it for everybody. Practice on friends and family. You'll probably sell some memberships, but practice this presentation, because then you can anticipate what's coming next and you start to get a flow of it. And also, that's what will tighten it up, because when you start doing this by yourself, it'll be too long, because that's just part of learning how to do it. And then you'll tighten it up and it'll get quicker.
So this slide here is, so the other thing that this slide deck is doing is it's addressing all the different listeners in the room, right? And so we've probably seen personality quizzes, and sometimes you see things like shark, dolphin, you know, like there's these different qualities of people, right? Different things about how they listen and how they engage, the kind of questions that they may be asking. We do this in our edification, and I don't know if you've heard the edification framework, but you're introducing someone for their knowledge, their generosity, their elements of fun, their how accessible, to how much access do they have to increasing wealth, how much wealth do they have. And so looking at those different things, the group of people we're talking to, we've already maybe did some objections, but there's someone who might be listening who wants those statistics, who can't move on, who can't listen to anything else until they've seen some concrete numbers. And so we were established in 1972. For me, the 4.4 million lives, I keep hearing that we're way closer to 5 million. I liked that someone once said that our slides can't keep up with us. So I like the way they framed that. Like, this was set up, but our slides can't keep up. We're almost at 5 million. Sorry about that. And I think that this could easily be lost on people. This piece right here at the bottom is a credibility, right? And so, especially with those objections, again, that people are like, well, what's your company? I've never heard about you. And they're now filing into, oh, is it one of those? And you start to, trying to deal with it. We want to combat that or address it by saying we have articles in Forbes and Yahoo Finance and CNBC, and it's just reading across, like, those names are of merit. And we do in our prospect have access. I think it's in our prospect, right? In the news is in our prospect.
In the news, yes.
Yeah, and we're able to send out those current versions of the awards we've received, the accolades, as well as where we show up in the news.
I'll also say that if there's something else you have, don't change the slide. Just add it to your comments so you remember to say it. Like, we're constantly being voted top ID theft product, monitoring product. One of the best places to work in America is Legal Shield. All those things keep trickling in. Like Joe said, the slides don't always keep up. We don't change the slide because these are company slides, but you can update the slide with your voice because this is your presentation. Just make sure what you're saying is accurate. That's all that matters.
All right. And this to me is really kind of a two-parter, right? Because we have the have you ever, and then it breaks into those questions. Does anybody want to address this slide?
This is what you've been training for. This is your slide.
This is it. This is the moment.
Well, I'll say to the group, this is where, when I'm working with people that are going to come on and do testimonials, this is where I do it. Because I like to leave that on the screen. I'll show them on the app how to access all of the features in the next few slides. But on this slide, I want to take an intangible concept and make it real life by showing them stories of other people. So I always start, when I do my presentation, I talk about the $500 security deposit. It was the first time I used my plan, but it's relatable. Here's what's not relatable. 2 weeks ago, when my wife, who's now a PhD and is editing a book and has a contract, they're going to pay her a bunch of money. That's highly unrelatable to the general audience. They're thinking, well, that's never going to happen to me. But I'll roll the dice that most people have been treated unfairly by a landlord, or they're a landlord and they feel like they're being treated unfairly by a tenant. One of those two has probably existed for everybody on the presentation.
A way that I use this also, and I've seen used, is that you say, we're going to go one by one. If this has happened to you, or if you know somebody this happens to, raise your hand. So I tend to like, as you can tell, an interactive meetings. So this is a great place for people to raise their hand. You can also ask them to count. How many of these things are you aware of? This is getting over the objection of that legal things don't happen to me. That's the question we're answering, because they said, maybe they still have in their mind, but yeah, I don't do bad things. Like, why would I even need an attorney? I already got my will done, and so they're already, thinking of the ways that it doesn't work for them. Here it's, have you ever signed a contract or a document? A really great fact is that everybody who turns 18 can sign a contract. So if they have children who are in college, if they themselves have a cell phone, or they've rented a car before, or have gone to an Airbnb, like, all of those are contracts. We just don't think about them as legal because we don't have the education to know that the words in there could hold us accountable in a way that maybe we don't expect. What else?
And I'll say, you're either going to spend a bunch of time here telling those stories, or on the next slides where the button is for how you would access it to solve that particular issue, but not both, right? Because then you're too long. So you don't want to tell all of your membership stories here. And then when you get on to the next few slides about which buttons you push to get consultation, to have a document reviewed, if you have a traffic ticket, you know, if you talk about it on the first slide, then when you get to those other slides, say, like I said, and then you just kind of keep it moving because you don't want to lose them. Remember, they're one red button away from going back to watching, you know, the new Punky Brewster reboot. I mean, we are competing for people's attention with this. So we don't want to lose them by making them feel like this is a laborious process to learn.
And for those of you who do not know who Punky Brewster is,
What? Raise your hand if you don't know who Punky Brewster is. We're gonna have a special meeting when this one concludes.
I wasn't sure that there was a reboot.
there is, and is it a late 80s, early 90s TV show about a little girl with a lot of spunk, and apparently she is back for a reboot.
This just became my favorite meeting.
No, have you seen Waffle? So I don't know if you guys have Netflix, but if you haven't seen Waffles and Mochi, it's a cooking show for kids, not for kids, because I think it's very informative, but it is the cutest thing in the world. Olive is going to love it. So we digress. So now we're on to the pages with the app.
Don't do that in the briefing.
Don't do that.
That's
Unless
for all of us.
Unless you can find a way to bring it back to Legal Shield. You can
Right.
say, just like when you're watching in Netflix and you start finding so many choices, like Waffles and Mochi, a hilarious cooking show, you have buttons here for your choices.
Well played.
Or if you're going to sign Punky Brewster as an associate.
That's right, because everybody needs an attorney. Who read her contract? How much did she pay for that? So here we're starting with personal legal advice, letters and calls made on your behalf, contracts and documents reviewed, and IRS audit assistance. Raise your hand if you know what every one of those things means. Oh, you're good. All right. So I'm going to ask Steve Brown, what does personal legal advice mean?
It means never having to feel like you're being taken advantage of. If you don't know what your rights are, you have easy access to somebody that will tell you where you stand.
Lisa, letters and calls made on your behalf.
Letters and calls made on my behalf. I've had this happen to me before. They've helped me in this way. And because I was being taken advantage of, they wrote a letter on my behalf and I was able to get refunded.
So who wrote a letter on your behalf?
Oh, the law firm, sorry.
Excellent. And then, right,
Legal
and
Shield.
we can add things like, and then they send it, right? They'll send it to it. I always include if the law is on your side, because a lot of people listen to only what they want to hear. And so for me, I always say, like, if the law is on your side, if this is actually happening, they'll send it. All right. Holly, did you raise your hand? Contracts and documents reviewed? You are muted, and I'm sure you just already started with the most amazing sentence that defined everything in like 3 words. I know it was amazing.
Still muted.
Still muted, yeah.
Oh, frozen. There you are. Nope. Am I frozen?
No, you're not frozen, but let's see if.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm dialed in on my phone, that's why it's odd. So we all signed documents throughout our life, like when you buy a car, having documents reviewed sent to the law firm up to 15 pages. They'll review them and make sure that that there's not hidden fees or anything like that going on.
Excellent. And then Clifford, IRS audit assistance.
So if you get audited by the IRS, we provide services to help you manage through that and to represent you during the process.
All right. So for me personally, I don't exactly know what the IRS audit assistance looks like, which is why I didn't raise my hand, because all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know what they do, and I was concerned that I would misrepresent that.
Joe, you just keep making that money. You're going to get that letter one of these days and you'll find out exactly what they do for you.
I don't want to know that way. Tell me what does that look like? I do know is that I would call my attorney. But what is it that they do? What are they doing for us when it comes to that assistance? Are they representing us in court? Are they?
Yeah, they're a tax attorney that will represent you. First of all, the IRS can ask you any question you want, any question they want, because you're not an attorney and you don't know what you have to answer or what you do have to answer. So they'll step in on your behalf. And for this is important. This is not for the presentation, but for all of you as entrepreneurs watching, you need the home business supplement to extend this coverage to your Schedule C. This is for family legal services, what we're talking about right here.
Right.
But that's what you get. You get IRS audit protection or representation. You get tax attorneys that go and represent you for that audit and for the meetings ahead of that audit.
I think you raise a great point that very often we would just start answering. And the good piece of advice is if they start asking you questions, you say, let me get my attorney. And that already has power, even if we don't know what that is. So that's really great. Awesome. I don't think there's anything else.
Unless you're in Mass.
What's that?
I said, unless you're within Mass, because we don't
Unless
do
you're-
the home business.
You're on your own
That is correct.
temporarily. We're working on it.
Well, yeah.
We promise.
So the next one is TAP Call Equal Access. We have the Civil Trial Defense, Family Domestic Services after a 90-day waiting period, and the document upload. Does everybody
Yeah,
knows
I-
what Go ahead.
I want to add to this that the way this can either be clunky or smooth, depending on if you talk about these things before the slide comes up or you talk about them when it comes up. So we tend to, if we know what the services are, I'm very guilty of this. I'll talk about all the things and then there's slides that say those things after, and then it feels a little awkward. So just be aware of what's coming next and wait and talk about it when it's on the screen.
Excellent. And so for the sake of time, because I do want to just quickly go through the ID Shield as well. Jim, do you mind? We're just going to let you take over. And
Yes.
if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand. But I just want to make sure we cover it because we definitely want to pick somebody. And it is 9:53. Is everybody okay going till 10:15 tonight? Is that all right with everybody? All right. Excellent. Thank you, guys. So we are at, is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, I think we got the concept.
Okay.
And remember, we're looking for volunteers that are either brave or crazy or both, or just are comfortable doing this and want to
Jim,
practice.
I have a question.
Yes.
How much do we want to talk about details, or is it better to stay at a high level and just kind of hit the bullet points on this, or does it add value or does it detract by giving them more information?
It detracts, it confuses them. So it's a high level overview. Listen, we're not trying to convince someone they should do something they don't want to do, but we're giving them the information they need to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Fast start to success is the training on these slides. It's the dive down the rabbit holes, which is why it's hours and hours of training. That's not what this is. This is the what we do, and then they get access to how we do it if they want to do it with us.
And the reminder that our prospects turning into leads, statistically is 7, what they call touches, meaning 7 some sort of exposure. And so, the people who sign up at that moment are ready for it. But then the other folks who have a lot more questions, that's going to come through maybe sending them to another live event or possibly sending them a flat sheet or having that 3-way call. So know that it isn't a one and done situation.
That's right.
So we have ticket assistance and the consultation within 4 business hours and the emergency access.
And then we're going into,
then
and so when I talk about the document, I go right to the ticket. So how do you upload a document? It's easy. You push the button and then I make it, because most people can't picture the document, but they can picture a speeding ticket. So I go right into the speeding ticket instead and explain that's how you use the app to send a secure document. In this case, your ticket, and then I just move on. And since when I do my presentation, I'm telling my story, so you can just keep going, Joe. I'm talking about how I was introduced to Legal Shield, which was only the legal plan. So now, and I'll talk about will preparation, but I'll be brief. I'll say, and every one of our members gets their will done, which includes your living will, your healthcare power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. And this is not a form you fill out and then hope that it's right. This is a mobile app where you get to give your attorneys the information they need to actually fulfill and build out your will correctly. So what you're going to get back is your actual will that you can use. And the value of that, well, you've all seen, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on where you're getting this legal access in the United States, something like that. And I'll talk about the discount, but really I am quick on these slides. I think what happens is we end up rushing on compensation, which is, it's a business overview, because we spent way too much time on membership, which is what tends to happen. But that's why, again, you're going to do this with someone who's a pro, because if you go a little long, a professional will just tighten it up on the other side when they do the opportunity for you.
Right. And tonight we're only going to do Legal Shield and ID
Yes.
Shield. Next month we're going to do it. We're going to break down the compensation. In fact, we might want to take 2 weeks on that so that we can really just dig down, if that's all right with everybody. So the 25% discount, again, like I think we're all very tempted to want to go deep into it and start to explain. And so remember again that like people can always ask questions later. Contingency plan cases.
Yeah, I just lumped those two things together. So if you have a DUI or a bankruptcy, you're still covered because of our incredible 25% discount for all of our members for anything that falls outside of how 80% of the time you're going to use the membership anyway. And that includes contingency cases where if you're injured or, you know, whatever, and I'll say whatever's on that slide. So I just kind of, I make those two together. I want that to take like 15 seconds. And then who's covered? And this is where I say, here's one of the most powerful words you can use in marketing is the word imagine. So you can say, so you can imagine what it would be like to have your entire family covered end to end with this legal services. And here's what the man asked me when he showed me this membership. He said, which would you choose? And this is where you go into the close, the price. Would you choose to check your checking account every time you needed to have a document reviewed or you needed to know what your rights were and find out that it's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, you know, at an average hourly rate of $250 an hour for an attorney? Or would you join a community where for $24.95 a month, you get access to all that we talked about today? Well, for me, it was a no-brainer. And see, that's me kind of setting the sales process, right? It's a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. They're thinking it too. I'm saying it out loud. For me, it was a no-brainer. 15 minutes before, when he walked in and asked me if he could show me this, I was just a guy on his lunch break. And 15 minutes later, I was a customer and he walked out with a check. Now, the reason I say it like that is because I'm going to show him the opportunity. I want him to see how simple it is. And so since Joe has the new slides, this is where I talk about, but since then, you know, we've expanded our services to include our businesses as entrepreneurs. So if you have a home-based business, you're covered for that as well. And I'll just jump ahead to ID Shield and identity theft. The number one complaint to the FTC over the year after year after year because of these data breaches that you're seeing in the news every single day. The reality is it takes mere minutes to find out you're a victim of identity theft, but it can take hundreds of hours to try to solve that for yourself, even if you could at all. And so we have this incredible service now called ID Shield. Let me tell you what that's about. And then I'll go into that. And usually what I do for ID Shield is I might hide a couple slides. I find that it's a lot of slides the way the company sends it, but I'll show them this mobile app. I'll say, now you'd expect ID Shield to be monitoring and alerts because you've seen monitoring services in the news and you've been advertised monitoring services. And we do what you'd expect. We monitor your credit score and the other things that matter, your social security number, your passport. And then I'll advance and I'll say, but then we also monitor the things you probably haven't thought of, like your financial accounts, your 401k, your credit cards. We make sure that title loan and buy here, pay here accounts are not opened in your name. You know what that means? That means peace of mind. And I'll just keep going. And again, I don't have to read every slide. And I say, but the big difference is restoration. And here's what that means. You know, everybody wants to promise monitoring, and monitoring is important because you want to know when there's a problem. You want to know as soon as possible when that problem occurs. But that's where most solutions stop. And that's why I'm so excited about ID Shield, because where everything else stops, the value of ID Shield really becomes obvious. Because with ID Shield, you get licensed fraud investigators that step in on your behalf to do total restoration. What that means is they do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to make sure that your identity, your good name, your children's good name goes back to the pre-theft status. Then I'll just keep going. And I'll probably zip through these. You can spend as much time on that as you want. But again, you know, I'm talking about your good name and who's covered, just like Legal Shield will cover your entire family. Can you imagine what it's like to have that peace of mind, to know that when you go to bed tonight, that you go to bed living your life worry-free, knowing that you are a tap of an app away from access to the justice system, and you know what your identity situation is because you have comprehensive and proactive privacy management. And because the service makes so much sense, that's why we're excited to invite you to learn more about the opportunity. And that's the transition into that.
Excellent. So we've got just a few minutes left. We're going to pick who would like to be doing a testimony next week and who would like to do the presentation. We do have fewer folks. I think we have a couple extras in the room tonight. Who is ready to do a testimony and who would like to do the presentation next week? People are, yes, Clifford.
I'll do a testimonial.
Okay. I can volunteer folks if you'd like.
Lisa Day. Lisa Day, this is the Lord.
All right, all right.
So Lisa, you'll be doing the membership presentation next week.
On both of them?
You'll be doing legal, you're going to do up everything we just did today.
Okay,
And then what we'll do is we'll coach you. If you come on a few minutes early, we'll coach you on getting that transition piece to introducing Jim.
okay.
Fair? And what we do
Sure.
is we get everybody on a Facebook Messenger so that we're all together. So I do need one more testimonial. Steve, would you like to do one? You are muted.
Steve Brown, this is your life.
Tell me just a little bit about what you want during a testimonial. How we use the service, or
30 seconds on how you've used the service. Absolutely.
sure, I can do that.
All right. With that said, we have filled our slots for next week. I want to thank you all so much for participating. Yes, for those of you out in TV land, we're very active here in the room. So if you are looking for this level of engagement, you are always welcome to come join us. We are here every single Thursday. With the
Joe, I don't want to interrupt you, but I know you're saying goodbye. I want you to know this is the most action we've had on social media. People are loving this topic.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for all of your comments, your likes, your hearts, your loves. Know that you're invited. So this is a reminder, the last week of the month is an open house. We are inviting anybody who wants to come in. So bring your guests. If you're doing a testimonial, if you're doing the presentation, make sure that we bring guests. I know that we can't guarantee that they're here, but we're going to make sure that we ask. I look forward to seeing all of you. We're going to start promptly at 9:30 next week. And Nola, if you're still on the call, you're likely doing the business. So, so I love you all. Thanks again, Jim. You're amazing. Thank you all for your time and your attention, and have a wonderful night. See you next
Good
week.
night, everybody. Thank you for
Bye.
participating.
Good night.